Hello everybody, welcome to today's video where I will be testing out a new watercolor palette from Lightwish. They kindly sent me this 24 colored set to try out. I am very excited, not only because this is the first time a brand have sent their product to me for review, but also because I never owned a 24 colored set like this. My first impression was that they are very easy to re-wet. And you can see they are very pigmented. Even if I haven't sprayed them with any water, they're still very smooth and velvety. The only colors that felt a bit weak was cobalt blue and French ultramarine, maybe because of the granulation. But I never used cobalt blue, so I can't compare that. And all the other colors are quite intense, and I had to be a bit gentle so that I don't accidentally pick up too much. The color choices were pretty nice, has a little bit of everything, and I especially like the earthy colors in the set, even if their names are a little bit unusual. The color umber looks more like a rusty burnt sienna color, which reminds me of quinacridone burnt orange. And the burnt sienna in the set is more like a soft brown, which I use quite a lot in the painting later. I'm also really glad that they included a mop brush, even if it looks like the hair has been pinched a little bit, but it's still very usable. I think it's great for beginners to try out a mop brush without spending too much money on it. I remember when I just started with watercolor, I spent the most money on paints instead of brushes and paper, and I didn't get my first mop brush until I have been painting for over a year. And I had no idea that brushes for watercolor is so fluffy and absorbent, so it's great to have a brush like this that come with the paint set. Here I'm testing out how the paint spread in water, and it looks like it doesn't flow crazy like some other paints tend to do. It spreads quite slowly in a more controllable manner. It's not a good or bad thing, but it's important to know this before starting a painting, so I know what to expect. I also wanted to see how easy it is to lift the paints once they have dried on paper, and it turned out that most of the colors are highly staining colors, and I don't know if it's the Baohong paper that makes it hard to lift, but once they have dried, I wasn't able to lift almost any paint, even after some hard scrubbing. And I saw that on the paint information there are pigment numbers, light fastness, transparency for each color, but they didn't mention how staining the colors are. On the back of this piece of paper, I wanted to compare these paints with the professional paints that I usually use, not just to compare the quality, but also for me to make some mental notes on what differences and similarities there are, so that I can have some kind of anchor points when I'm starting to paint. And I have to say, I'm surprised that some of these paints are more saturated and thicker than brands like Daniel Smith and Winsor Newton, especially that purple color. It is super rich and almost electric. It's not the kind of color I usually reach for, but I can imagine it to be very useful for painting florals. like all new metal palettes, this one is very smooth and has some beading issues. It just means that the water droplets roll around on the surface. So I'm using a nail buffer to gently scrub the mixing surface until the water can spread better on it, and then I'm ready to paint. This time I tried to leave some footage unedited so that you can see me pausing, thinking, and to be honest, sometimes I don't remember what I was doing. Maybe looking at the reference and rehearsing the brushstrokes, just taking my time and thinking about what I should do next, and maybe about what part of the paper is still wet and if I should move on to a dry area. And because I haven't memorized the layout of this new palette, it took me a bit more time to mix the colors I want. Sometimes I have to wash my brush and remix because it wasn't the right hue or consistency. I don't want to give the impression that if you're a beginner and if you get this paint set, you will be able to paint like this. I certainly could not have done it when I was a beginner, even if I had the best paint in the world. And I still think paper is the most important material for watercolor, and brushes the second, and then it's the paint. My first paint set was the Cotman pocket box with 12 colors, and I did not like it at all. I ended up didn't paint watercolor for months. So this might be an unpopular opinion. I know a lot of watercolor tutorials say that you only need 6 colors to get started. And in theory, you were supposed to be able to mix every color possible, but I find out that's not always the case. If the cool red in the palette is alizarin crimson instead of magenta, I'm missing so much pretty pinks and purples, and even if I could, it was very hard to mix the colors in the right consistency, like butter or cream consistency, because we need to add water when mixing paint, and that can easily dilute the paint too much. So if I have a friend who is starting watercolor today, I would suggest that they get an empty metal box like this one, and then adding 18 to 24 colors, depends on their budget and preferences. I think it's also nice for them to try both half pans like these and also tube paints, so that they get the full experience, like squeezing out the paint and let it dry and all that. It's nice to try both and see what they prefer. I wish someone had told me about the paint tubes when I just started. I don't know where I got the idea that paint tubes need to be used when they're still wet, or I will need to buy some medium to keep them from crumbling. I don't know why I thought that they were kind of mysterious. I guess I only have myself to blame, because sometimes I like to do the thing first and research later, because I don't like to get spoiled. I want to find out myself. But yeah, I only have myself to blame. Now I'm going to stop myself from babbling too much so you can watch this painting process in peace. And feel free to paint the same reference photo together with me. I will link the picture down below. And this time I'm also going to skip the music. I know some of you prefer that painting ASMR thing. And I'm gonna come back in the end to let you know how I felt about these paints. While I was editing this video, I had 3 more days to play around with these paints, and I made this color wheel chart to see the relationships between the colors. And upon closer inspection of the pigment numbers, there are a few familiar names like chromium oxide and quinacridone rose, and also the more obvious phthalo green and phthalo blue. Most of the colors are made with single pigment, and I was a bit surprised that the earthy orange color was made with 2 pigments, and also there is a white pigment in the tree green. So if I could choose, I would switch out the tree green for green gold. I like to use green gold for both landscapes and portrait paintings. And I would also replace the madder red with quinacridone coral or opera rose, just some color for that glowing skin look. Other than that, I would say this is a great set for intermediate beginners to try artist grade paints at an affordable price, especially if you prefer half pans to tube paints, and if you haven't tried one of these mop brushes. They can be pretty costly depending on where you live. Mine costs almost like $24 and I don't even use it very often. So this is a great way to try out one of these softer brushes to see if you like it or not, or what size do you prefer. And as you can see, it holds a lot of water and it is very soft. I will keep using these paints in the future, and my favorite color from this set is this burnt sienna. It's not the burnt sienna that I'm used to see, but I love this soft brown color. It's great for skin and hair, and I just love it. And I would like to have a tube of color like this. So if you know any color similar to this one that comes in a tube, please do let me know in the comments. So I think that's all I have to say about this set, and I will leave the link and discount code in the description if you're interested. Otherwise, have a great day and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.